Hello.
Hey, welcome to the Q&A for October.
It's the same card.
It is the same card.
That's how cheap we are here at ArtCraft. We won't even spring for a new card.
We have one card.
And I like this special effects. Look at that. That's nice, right? It's in 3D. Wee, wee.
I don't know that he can make it 3D,
All
but
right.
he can make it cool.
Anyway.
Okay, so our thank yous for this month go out to Obs LOD.
Who plays a lot. Thank you for that.
Yep.
Very awesome. He also wins a lot.
Taru, thank you. EDM. Duralon?
Durayon. I made that up. I don't know.
Okay.
That's my guess.
Xander's an easy one to thank. And then...
Waikikamukow.
There you go. You got that.
I got that one down. Yeah.
And Nakawi.
Or Nakawi. So here's what we need. We need you guys to give us pronunciations when you put your post up so that we actually
we just have this.
Can pronounce your names because we don't know how to pronounce it.
But thanks again.
There you go. Yeah.
Question number 1. How will strongholds be protected against attacks when the guilds that control them are offline?
This is a good question. So we should probably do a distinction between POIs and strongholds, first of all. Right. So go ahead.
So the strongholds are in the middle of the parcels. That
Right.
is where all of your services are going to be.
Right.
The POIs are going to be out in the middle of nowhere with stuff that you need to bring back to the keeps or strongholds.
POI stands for points of interest, and they include basically resource factories. So mines,
lumber mills,
quarries, things like that. So the POIs are designed specifically to change hands all the time. Like they should be constant hotspots of fighting.
Right.
So you can't really control and hold on to one without camping and sitting on it, right? And the point is other people are supposed to come there because these things are popping resources that you need, and they're supposed to be there for skirmishes and things like that.
Right.
Strongholds, though, are supposed to be bases of operation, so they're protected
and
most
you own
of the
those,
time.
right? I mean,
right. So once you capture a stronghold and you take it over, it's basically yours, and it's protected most of the time. And then depending on the siege mechanics, there is some mechanism by which the protection shield on that drops. And it usually is supposed to be a cadence of every few days, right? 72 hours, stuff like that. One of the rules that we have announced is it's the Bane Circle rule, which means I can actually go and I can declare I'm going to attack you, and that sets the window to drop. The other one I think we just had on a timer. We're going to play with that quite a bit, but the idea is basically it's fully protected until such time as that window opens, and then there's a siege window, and that's when other people can come and attack your stronghold and try and take it. If they don't take it before the window closes, it defaults back to you, so the home team has an advantage. If they do take it, then you're kicked out and they become the new owner of that stronghold.
Pretty simple.
Yep, that's it.
Regarding trajectories for spells, will each arrow and fireball have its own speed? And will you have to adjust for range?
Why don't you take that one?
Yes. Yes, you do. In fact, Tully and I can set up the velocity on every projectile, and we can shrink and grow them. And their mass is important too, right?
Right.
Hit stuff midair.
They also collide. That's something we talked about just yesterday, in fact, is if I have a bunch of knights who are up at a castle wall, right? They're at a gate trying to smash their way through it or something like that. As a confessor, I can't just shoot a fireball and hit that door as if those knights aren't there. Those knights are actually blocking that doorway.
You need to get out of the way of the fireballs.
Yeah, or aim a little higher or something like that. So the physics-based nature of our game actually adds a lot of new and interesting kind of things to think about, elements to the gameplay that you have to think about when you're using projectiles.
Yeah.
So there you go.
All right. Where are the servers currently located, and what are the future plans for server locations?
Server question. So I can certainly give you the answer for servers right now. So we started with one in the U.S.
Right.
Then we spread it to, now we have an east and a west in the U.S.
Yep.
And just as of this week, or last week, I think we added Frankfurt. And this week we added one in Singapore. So the great thing is that we've actually gone through all of the packaging. In fact, Mr. Mike, who they met last week on Murder of Crows, went through the process of building our packaging and deployment system so that now with the Amazon cloud, we can deploy a new server pretty much anywhere in the world.
He was making a joke that he could X-copy a server. And
pretty much in almost no time.
Yeah.
So we went to get coffee this morning, and I was talking to him, and I said, so if I wanted a server in Italy by noon, he said I could have it done by the time we finish this coffee back in the office, which is boastful, and Mike is that way.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. It is a little boastful, but it's also an incredibly cool thing because historically, like 10 years ago,
no.
we would have
It's a
had to
big
put
deal.
him on a plane and send him to Singapore.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know how many months later, but many months later, he would have called us from Singapore, probably late at night, and said, "Hey, I finally got your server working."
No, he'd probably say something's broken.
He'd say something's broken, and I would
be
say
another week.
I would say, "Mike, don't call me at night." So
Yeah.
Anyway, so the deployment schedule is pretty open at this point. We haven't figured out exactly where we're going to put these. It'll be probably based on demand and where we have backers and where we get foreign territory partners. The great news is now, though, there's no technical limitation. Anywhere Amazon Cloud is available, we can get there.
We see demand, we can spin something up
very quickly,
which is awesome.
How will campaign landscapes be generated, and are there plans to add features such as mountain ranges into them?
So let's take the second part of that first, which is things like mountain ranges and rivers and forests and valleys, and all of that is absolutely in the plan. So we're using a procedural system to generate the terrain, but it's not a fractal system. We did some experimentation early on with fractal systems, and what we found is that it results in terrain that looks really cool from a vista standpoint, like looking out over the mountains, but it's not particularly playable. Like,
no, it's never going to be
it
playable.
results in a lot of really crazy slopes and cliffs that it doesn't result in play spaces that are actually fun to traverse, or that are reasonably sized, right? They also ends up with areas that are way, way, way too big. So what we ended up doing was coming with a hybrid approach where we custom create parcels of land.
The Tetris pieces?
That look like little Tetris pieces. And then we're going to use those same parcel pieces for the Eternal Kingdoms and the campaign worlds. The difference will be that in the Kingdoms, players can drag and drop those to rearrange their world.
Right.
And that's including
The
strongholds
server's
and
going to do it
everything.
when the world spins up.
And then on the campaign worlds,
It's going to reach into a big grab
procedurally.
bag, grab a bunch of Tetris pieces, place them on the map, and then start filling the map in with smaller Tetris
Right, and we
pieces.
haven't done that yet. My guess
That's the goal.
My guess is that it'll end up doing like mountains first and the largest strongholds first, and then over time it'll just kind of fill in the details until you have a full world. And then of course we will have the tool and the ability to go in and change those. If we're like, hey, this is a pretty cool base world, but it would be much more interesting if there was a river cutting here or a big mountain range here.
Yeah, it'll result in much cooler game spaces than your pure procedural generated worlds.
I think so, and it'll give us a lot more fine control.
Where the POIs are.
What I've found in the past is fractal systems are great for generating obviously large amounts of space very, very quickly. But then you don't. It's kind of like you have a nuke. That's your only tool. You can blow it away with a new seed and generate an entire new area. It's very hard to go in and say, hey, I want to move this particular copse of trees over here. They're not very well suited.
I think they're great for making lots of space. They're not good for making lots of playable space.
Right, and custom crafted, interesting spaces are key, I think, to making fun strategic
and
combat.
cohesive spaces.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, those two things you just don't get.
Right, exactly. So there you go. That's how we're going to build our
campaign
plan worlds.
All right. Is there a plan to incentivize no import campaign world players who are not interested in the overall game economy to sell or export their campaign world rewards?
That was a mouthful.
It is. Okay. They're saying I'm the kind of player who really wants to play in the dregs because I want a nice, even, clean playing field at the beginning of every campaign. Why would I care about the rewards if I don't ever intend to go to the EK and I can't bring new things in with me? And so it's a good question, except that the question kind of contains, like embedded within it, is an unanswerable puzzle, right? It's a trap.
It's a trap.
It's a trap. In Akbar terms, it's a
It's
trap.
It's a trap.
So here's why it's a trap, right? So I've got somebody coming to me and they're saying, hey, I love to play games at Dave & Buster's, but those tickets that spit out of the bottom of the games, I don't give a shit about those because I don't like anything in the store. It's all a bunch of bullshit. I don't want to do any of that.
It's pencils and erasers.
It's pencils and erasers, and I don't really care about that. So I don't care about that. Why should I care about the tickets? Well, you're not going to. I'm telling you, baked into this question, that I don't care about X, Y, or Z. Now you tell me why I care about X, Y, or Z. You don't. I understand. I mean, you don't. So we've tried to actually approach this a couple different ways, right? Like we have the artifacts and relics.
Right.
And the artifacts and relics actually give you some small benefit in your other campaigns. Not enough that will unbalance it, but a little bit so that you have some reason to care.
Right.
And we also have the tournament system and leaderboards, things like that for bragging rights. But at the end of the day, we're specifically creating this type of campaign for people who do not want to have their campaign influenced by that metagame.
Right. They're asking for a ticket system on top of the ticket system.
They're asking for a ticket system and saying, but it better not be a ticket system, right? I don't want tickets. Tickets are bullshit. Now what are you going to give me?
Right.
Well, I can't give you anything
without,
without ruining the dregs. So,
right.
so the answer doesn't make any sense.
That's why it's a trap.
That's why it's a trap.
Maybe he wants some kind of like free VIP monthly.
He can get that, actually. So that's a great answer. So he could absolutely take those rewards and use them to trade to other players to buy. So there you go. I'm sorry, here's the answer. You should trade that for VIP tickets to other players, and you can get free VIP game time.
As long as you can find players who want to trade VIP game
Which
time for
there
it.
will be, because other players are going to care. Right?
Yeah.
So there you go.
Is it possible to design artifacts that have a time limit on how long they last for, or that have conditions on how they can be removed?
So let's take the first half of that.
Yes.
So we expect that we will have to put some kind of limitation on
everything in
the
the world
artifacts.
decays.
Everything decays.
Right,
Artifacts decay based on time as well. We've talked about or toyed around with the idea of having like a sacrifice system where you can basically extend the life of your artifacts by
Right.
either consuming some kind of resource or additional artifacts. But that's still all very fuzzy. At this point right now, the plan is you get an artifact, you install it, and it's going to slowly kind of wane over time. And the reason for that is pretty obvious, is because we want to keep a demand for these that are constant. We don't
Well,
want
it's the
people to come
foundation
in.
of our game.
Right,
is everything decays.
Everything decays. That's
Right, that's
everything is eaten eventually by the hunger. So the second half of the question, what was the second half of the question? Is there a way to have them removed?
Right.
Not particularly right now. We don't have any plan for that. So we might. I know we did plan to have them conditional. You can only use certain artifacts in certain ways.
Correct.
This is an area, though, that, to be honest, we need to sit down and go to a more detailed level of design.
And once we start building it, it will even further clarify itself.
Right.
Like, that idea was terrible. Let's
Yes.
let's do something slightly
That
different.
happens. I
That
know.
happens a lot.
Yes, it happens quite a bit.
I mean,
Will disciplines be restricted by archetype?
What do you think? Do you want to do that or
yeah,
not?
absolutely, disciplines are going to be
All
restricted
right,
by
I
archetypes.
guess they will be.
Yeah,
Sounds great.
There's going to be some that will surprise you, and some that are just like, we just don't have the animations for that.
Yeah.
We can't give it to them.
And that also does mean, though, that over time we can be less and less restrictive if
Sure.
we want to. So there's also narrative restrictions, right? There are going to be times when we're going to say, hey, for narrative reasons, we don't want this particular archetype having access to this particular discipline. Like, that's a Frost Weaver. They shouldn't have access to that Dwarven skill set or whatever. So I guess that's...
Yeah. Generally, you'll be able to equip most things.
That's the hope.
That's the hope.
Right.
But we're just not going to have the animations for everything.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the game we're building.
Final question. What will be the next design focus after combat?
More combat.
Combat just keeps on going.
I know, it
and
does.
going
It
and
does.
going and going. And hey, I'm really happy with the results from the Hunger Dome. At least we have a really solid base to build on top of.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's just adding more new things to that, as well as pulling in the MMO stuff.
So by the time this video goes out, actually, we will have just wrapped the 1.0 Hunger Dome testing.
Correct.
The initial phase of testing. And we'll go back into development for a month.
A period of time.
Some period of time. And in November, we'll start our next phase of testing, which will be basically the same thing expanded. We're going to add the champion. We've got a couple other tricks up our sleeve that we haven't talked about yet that'll be coming out as well. And then beyond that, the next one after that is 2.0, which will be significantly different. It won't be the same. It won't be the Hunger Dome match anymore. And we haven't really talked about that, but I think that's probably...
We'll keep that one in the bag.
I think that's information for future updates. So the other thing to keep in mind is that we're not only working on combat. Like we have a strike team, which is a pretty good portion of the team that are completely geared towards combat and the milestones we're putting out. We also have other people in the background who are working on other things as well, right? So we have to, because we've got a lot of work to do, and even though we're moving at a breakneck, amazingly quick pace, we still we don't have time to waste. We need to be hitting on all cylinders.
Yep.
So
Development continues.
Development continues.
All right. Thanks for coming out.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you again next month.
And we might even have a new card. I don't know.
We can just scratch one of these
Scratch
out. Yeah. November.